Hi folks, in this video we're gonna have a look at the effect hook for the React JS. Here's a first example. You can see this is a usage of the useState hook. useEffect is used over here. It says it's similar to component did mount and component did update. That's because in the form that it is given here, the effect is the function inside of it, and this effect will run when the component is mounted for the first time and any future rendering after the first render. Also note that useEffect function is run after each render. So if we have a look at the card here, this is for the lifecycle methods. Component did mount and component did update are the places where you place your side effects for the effect, and they are placed after the render for both. Okay. First one is a effect without cleanup. Go look. This is a class version. All you're doing is there's a count state, and every time you click on a button, it increments the count by 1 and updates the content of this paragraph. Okay, and what the effect does, it just sets the document title as you click some count times and updates the document title with the same string. You need both component did mount and component did update. You need component did update to run this effect, changing the document title after the very first render. After any subsequent rendering, you also need this to update your document title. So this is the class-based solution. Let's see how we can do the same with using hooks. Okay. Here you use the state object. Here you're also using useState hook again. Okay, same count state variable here, and you're doing the same thing but just using this useEffect. I told you at the very beginning in this example, if you form the useEffect in this way, it will run the effect once after the first render and run this effect again after any subsequent rendering. So this and this has the same effect. Okay. Now, effect with cleanup. First, the class-based solution. So you got a state with is online. At the end, in the render, if the state is online is undefined, return the string called loading ... Otherwise, if you're online, return online string, otherwise offline string. Simple enough. So you got a utility function here that updates your isOnline state variable, and this utility function is used inside your lifecycle methods. Okay, so component did mount means at the after the very first rendering, subscribe to the friend ID that is passed as a prop. Okay, and component will unmount is when the component is about to be unmounted. So you can see like this. In the lifecycle method, first is component did mount, second is component component did update, then component will unmount, in that order. Here the component did update is not defined, so what's happening inside component will unmount? You unsubscribe from friend status. Yeah, so the effect of that is at the beginning you will subscribe the friend to your service, and then at the very end you will unsubscribe him. Okay, and according to well, yeah, that's it. Now the same thing using hooks. Well, remind yourself, this section is about effect with cleanup. Where is the cleanup defined in class example? It is of course here. Component will unmount. What is the cleanup operation? It is defined to be unscribing friend from the service. So that's the cleanup, and we're gonna do the same using hooks this time. In the useEffect hook, you put inside the utility function that you use to change the status, like here, and at the effect is to subscribe your friend, and the cleanup is defined by returning a function, cleanup function. And of course, as you can guess, inside of the cleanup function you unsubscribe your friend. There is an order to this where the cleanup and the effect occurs, which I will clarify very soon. Okay, so yeah, this is the same example. Says some effect might require cleanup, so they return a function. Which function? Here. So what is the cleanup operation? It is defined to be whatever is inside here, whatever function is returned from the useEffect. It is to unsubscribe your friend. Okay. Other effects might not have a cleanup phase, so you don't return anything, such as here. All it does is it updates your document title. Yep. So it's saying you're gonna handle both the count and is online state members. Yeah. So what it's trying to tell you is that this is a bit messy. You got two unrelated operations shoved into the same lifecycle method. Like in component did mount, you update the document title and you subscribe your friend. In computer, yeah, and that's a bit messy, right? It's just the two examples from above combined into one class. If you use the hooks, it's much more logical, right? So you use useState to define count, and you make a separate useEffect with the effect being this. So you just update your document title. You use another useState and you define a state called isOnline, and you separate the useEffect again. The effect being you subscribe your friend, and the cleanup being you unsubscribe him. So compared to this, using the hooks are more cleaner and logical. Separates different operations into separate useState and separate useEffect. Okay. It's saying early on the page, using the Classspace solution, you had to define both what to do at the first rendering and what to do at the very end when the component unmounts. But what if I'll remind you, the operations here is to first subscribe your friend at the beginning, and at the end unsubscribe him from service. But what if your friend ID has changed in the middle of the program running, before it is finished? Then at the component will unmount, you will be unsubscribing a wrong friend because the friend ID has changed somewhere along the way, and this is a serious bug. Using the effect hook, you can fix this very easily. Well, before that, let's try to fix it using the Classspace lifecycle methods. Okay, so you do the same thing at the beginning, subscribe your friend, but this time when in the subsequent rendering, after each subsequent render, you first unsubscribe your previous friend and subscribe your next friend. Alright, so by doing this you fix your dilemma. Okay, using hooks it's much easier. You just subscribe your friend after each render, but also unsubscribe him after each render. But as I said, there's an order in which the cleanup and effect are registered. Okay, here, over here. So at the beginning, well, it's just passing the stage here, friend with ID. Okay, at the beginning you subscribe your friend, you run your first effect, which is here. Remember, this is a cleanup Okay, in the second in the second rendering, maybe your friend ID has changed. This is very important here. Listen to this, pay attention. What you do after the second render, you first unsubscribe your previous friend, and then you run the next effect. What is the next effect? You subscribe your new friend. Say the friend ID has changed once again. Same thing. You do the cleanup first and then the effect. So you unsubscribe your old friend and subscribe your new friend. And this is very important as well. In the unmount, you run the cleanup, which is you unsubscribe your old friend, but this time you don't run the effect again. At the unmount, you only run the cleanup. Okay, so here it's really important to realize how it works, in what order each of them works. So at the beginning, at the first render, you'll subscribe your friend. After the second render, I say it's after, because effect happens after the DOM has been updated. Yeah. So after the second render, you don't subscribe your new friend, but first you unsubscribe your old friend, then subscribe your new friend. After the third render, you unsubscribe your old friend, then subscribe your new friend, and so on. And if the component is about to be removed or unmounted, you run the cleanup, which is to unsubscribe your old friend, and it ends there. Okay, as you can see here, in the unmount you only run the cleanup. Okay, you don't run the effect. Right, very good. The example here is it introduces a if statement, so that only when the count state has changed, then you update the document title. This is the Classspace solution. Using useEffect, you just pass the count as an array of the second parameter of the useEffect. In this way, only when the count changes, you will run the effect. Okay. Okay. Same here. By passing this, it will only resubscribe if friend ID changes. Okay. So and here it's saying if you do this, like this, if you pass an empty array, you'll be like defining so you'll be like defining component did mount and component will unmount. Okay, so the effect over here and its cleanup will only sorry, I'll use this different example. So here the effect will only be run once at the very first, after the very first render, and it will unmount at the end. Okay, so I guess if you have if you have if you have a cleanup operation defined, I guess it will be like this. Okay, at the first render, run the effect, then do nothing until when the component will unmount, you run the cleanup. Okay, I guess that's how it works. Okay, I got a real example here. It's the code from the Udemy course. Okay, I'll just go through it. The cockpit is this, the header, paragraph, and the button. It's the cockpit, which is defined in cockpit.js. Okay, so there are two effects. First one will only run twice, at the very beginning and at the end. Second one will run after each render. Okay, so as you can see, it will alert the string after 1 second, and then it will do nothing until the component gets unmounted, where it will run the cleanup operation. In here, it will console log this after each render. Also this cleanup effect, and when the component cockpit will be unmounted, it will run the cleanup for the last time. Okay, and if you look at here is the cockpit from the app.js. As you can see, as you have noted, the useEffect happens whenever its props or state changes. Here's the list of props. The one that's relevant are show persons and persons. Okay, so I'm just gonna refresh this. As you can see, after 1 second, the string is alerted, and it will not be alerted anymore because it's only running at the first and at the beginning. Sorry, only running at the first and at the end. Okay, and if I toggle persons, we will have changed the show persons prop, so it will cause re-rendering of the cockpit. Okay, so let's toggle person. As you can see here, well, let me try again. At the very beginning, it says useEffect and second useEffect. It means that both the first effect and the second effect was run. If I toggle persons though, here there's nothing about the first useEffect, only the second useEffect, because of passing an empty array as a second parameter to the useEffect for the first useEffect. So what's run is its cleanup of the second effect and effect itself. So you can clearly see a cleanup first for the second effect, and then the second effect itself. Okay, so if I change one of the values of these input, it will also cause re-render. Okay, so let's see. You can see here, you can see clearly that the first useEffect was not called, only the second one. As you can see, the same order. First the cleanup of the second effect and the second effect itself. Okay, but if I click remove cockpit, it will unmount the cockpit, right? And you've seen here on the unmount, it will run the cleanup for the last time. So let's do it. As you can see here, the first effect cleanup was cold, and then second effect cleanup was also cold, but the effect of the second user effect was not cold. Only the cleanup operations for both were cold, as expected. So I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.